Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. We're here with Emily Brooks Miller. How you doing?
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being
All right,
here.
you're welcome. You're always welcome here. Anybody who does anything with comic books, I just like to talk about comic books with people. And well, I guess we'll start it off. We'll talk about you're working on a project, right? Okay.
Yeah, so currently my Kickstarter is live for it's my second campaign that I've been running for a project called Bird Dads, which is basically a book that's exploring the trials and tribulations of fatherhood. And instead of following a human man, we're looking at the stories of a pigeon.
Oh, pigeon. Okay, I'm going to bring up your campaign. There you go. So, wh- why do you? First off, do you write it and draw it?
Yes, so I'm the writer and I'm the illustrator, so both jobs. It's all me.
Oh, is this live? Oh, yeah, it is live. Okay, I thought I hit the wrong button. So, okay, cool. So tell us, Bird Dad, this is your own original material? Cool, cool. See,
Yeah, he started as kind of like a mini series that he was in the back of some of the Dark Horse comics, and I do lots of different kind of pop up events and illustration events, and he was his own character. And from doing those things, I had some really good feedback where people were saying, "Hey, you did your last campaign and it went really well, and maybe the next book should be Bird Dad himself." So he just kind of naturally became the next one.
oh, that's cool. So you started out with something different, and then fan demand demanded Bird Dad.
Yeah, so I had last year I ran a campaign that was two books as told by rats and Be More Gus, and they were sold at the same time. And then from that experience, I was like, I really want to do this again. And Bird Dad just kind of seemed like the right fit. He was a character that I'd been thinking about for a long time, and he just kind of fit perfectly into the graphic novel format as well.
I gotta ask because of the art style. Is this an all ages book, children's book? Like, oh,
Well, I was talking to someone about this the other day where a lot of my artwork is it's quite a childlike style and it's very colorful and it's quite poppy. And this is 12 plus to keep that in
okay.
mind that there's kind of cartoon depictions of violence and a little bit of drug use. So from the outside in, it kind of looks like it could be for kids, but maybe with a pinch of salt there.
It's funny. I used to be a kindergarten teacher, and one of the things that we did was like we wrote a book. So I wrote a book. I'm scared of the duck, and we wrote it together as a class, and then the other kindergarten teachers were horrified. At the end, the kid's screaming, "I'm scared of the duck!" And the mother's like, "Don't be, it's." She thinks he's saying dark, and she keeps reassuring the kid, and don't be. And then the last page, the kid's in bed, and the lights turn off, and you just hear quack.
That sounds like my kind of thing. And even when you say that there, the kind of universe that I've created for these characters, I've coined as a broken apple, and everything kind of comes under that. And when I was in kindergarten, we had a project where we were all given like a stack of sticky notes, those kind of like neon square
Yeah,
ones that you get in a pack. And we were all told to make a book out of that for the day. And my book at the time was just kind of like nonsense stories that have a lot of animal characters in there. And I put on the front a broken apple as the title. So it's that kind of kindergarten story that's kept going throughout all these other projects.
have you been drawing your whole life?
Yeah, it's quite funny. It's one of those things where I was lucky to grow up in a creative house and my family are really creative. And it's only looking back now that I go, oh wow, like all of these photos and kind of things that we have from that period of time are all based around art. And it was massively encouraged. So I think I always really loved it. I really enjoyed it. And then I had a few years kind of in my early 20s where I thought, oh, I don't know if this can be a job. I love it, but I don't know if I can find a way to make that happen.
Yeah,
So I tried to kind of commercialize it in different ways, try out different internships, particularly marketing. So that seems quite creative as well. And then it just sort of came full circle where I realized that what I enjoyed doing when I was 9 or 10 years old is what I enjoy now.
Well, tell
So
me about it. When I was 9 or 10 years old, I was making comic books. Now I'm 50
exactly,
years old, and unfortunately I'm working construction during the day, but at night I'm making comic books.
exactly.
A wiser man than me said, "Do what you wanted to do when you were 10 years old." You know, if I could find out how to be a space pilot and a comic book artist and pay my bills doing that, that's what I would be doing. I'm, I'm gonna. I could play you trailer. The reason why I ask is sometimes there's music on it, and then YouTube gets funny if it's like, So it's okay
Yeah,
if
that's all good. It's actually my friend Lucy that did the music, so they won't get me in trouble.
okay. I'm gonna make it big, and then I'm gonna play your trailer. All right. The early bird gets the worm. Everyone gather around.
Dad!
Shut up. It's time I told you a little story. The story of my life.
He's a high flyer, oh he's a hoot, the jack of all trades, with the rule of the roost. Birds off a feather, play fast and loose, now he's waiting to give up the goose.
It's Bird Dad. Bird Dad.
He's a high flyer, oh he's a hoot, the jack of all trades, with the rule of the roost. Birds off a feather, play fast and loose, now he's waiting to give up the goose.
It's Bird Dad. I gotta say, you said it's 12 up. I don't know. Do 12-year-olds go to strip clubs?
They've got to learn somehow.
Gotta learn. And this is a pigeon, right? Bird Dad.
Yeah, he's a pigeon, so I kind of had the name first. I like names for different projects and for different characters. And Bird Dad could have been any bird, but I live in an apartment. I'm kind of a few floors up, and I work from home. I'm in here all day, and I'm sort of at eye level with families of pigeons. So it naturally happened. It came together.
I'm not going to ask you to dox yourself, but obviously you're in the United Kingdom someplace. There's pigeons there. I mean, I work in New York City. There's like, and the New York City pigeons don't get out of your way. They like look at you like, dude, I'm walking over here. Like they'll trip you. They're all over the place. They're pooping. They're a menace. So is Bird Dad picked because pigeons are menaces? Is like,
Yeah, exactly. And I think I'm in Glasgow, I'm in Scotland. There's lots of pigeons, and
okay,
I mean they're kind of taglined as the rats of the sky
yeah,
here.
winged
And
rats. That's what we call them over here.
yeah, and I have a soft spot for them. I mean we did them out of a job by getting a postal service. So I feel like we owe them something now.
Yeah, they're all homeless because we put them out of work.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny. My wife used to go to my wife was from Canada, and she moved to New York, and every spring and every fall she would go to Central Park and watch the trees change and stuff like that, and she would just love the pigeons, and the squirrels would come up to you, and so she said there was an old woman there who was just like, "Don't feed the rats with wings." My wife got all intimidated, so she stopped feeding the pigeons. She started feeding the squirrels, and she goes, "Those are the ground rats." My wife's like, "Do you like anything?" Like, I don't know. Do you have
Well, that's
squirrels?
Oh, we have tons. I mean, Glasgow in a lot of ways is kind of it's often described as like a mini New York. There's the grid system, there's the kind of built up areas. It's really creative. You've got like the arts and the theatre, and I think with that you've got the rats, you've got the squirrels, you've got the pigeons, you've got the vermin that people over time are kind of growing a bit of a
I
softer spot for.
squirrels were just a North American thing. I didn't realize you had them over there. Okay.
Yeah, I remember, so in the noughties, I remember there was tons of red squirrels, and those just don't really exist anymore. I mean, I'm sure in parts of the world they do, but in the UK they're not really around. But the grey ones we have everywhere.
Oh yeah, we have gray squirrels. They like 90% of the squirrels you see are gray. But once you get out of the New York area, you see black squirrels. And I very rarely, but I do see red squirrels. But it's weird to see a black squirrel. They're beautiful. First
I've
you
never
look at it,
seen that.
you think you're seeing a small cat, but You know, I had no idea pigeon racing was a thing. So I got to ask you then, like, do you have Sesame Street over there in Glasgow? Like, you know, Ernie and Bert. Bert is a big advocate of pigeons. You know, he loves his pigeons. Like,
Oh, I'm all about that. I mean, any kind of Sesame Street or The Muppets was kind of like my bread and butter growing up. I loved it, and I really loved particularly like the original seasons of it that you could watch. I love when you've got like Roger Moore just with Kermit and everything.
oh,
Um, those kind of blasts from the past.
yeah,
So I think definitely those kind of characters are all quite animalistic in their own way and childlike, and it all ties into one big circle.
yeah. I so you put Bird Dad in the background of your original comic, and people reacted to Bird Dad, and now you're bringing him as the forefront of your next project, this project. So,
Yeah, so,
okay,
sorry. Yeah,
what
he was in the
people?
back of some of the Dark Horse comics that there was ones that my dad was working on and ones that I was doing independently. And yeah, he kind of found his feet after that.
Oh, here you go, Alex. Be back, Bird Dad. Cool. Good for
Oh,
you.
thank you.
So, like, just out of all the birds, white pigeons, is it? I don't know. I just think it's funny because you know in New York they're the dirty birds, and then I watch the Trailies go to the strip club, and so I guess it wouldn't work if it was like a dove. You know, they have a different connotation, different reputation.
Yeah, it wouldn't work. You wouldn't get that kind of slumped posture as well.
Um, uh, so you work at home in Glasgow? I've never been to Glasgow. Is it, you know, in New York, as we think of Glasgow as like frozen all the time? Am I far off?
You think that it's what, sorry?
Frozen. It's just cold. You know.
Oh yeah. I mean today this is the peak of summer, right? And today it was 20 degrees, which is I think less than 70 for you guys. And everybody was out in like shorts and crop tops and sun cream. So I mean it's always really cold here, but I love it and I promise I don't live in a cave. It's just nighttime. It's always quite dark. But yeah, I work from home and I work in this space and I share it with my partner Chris as well, who works from home. So we kind of have like a desk each that's here, and we have a divider, like a shutter that you can pull out for. Usually it's me that's talking too much, and he goes, "That's enough," and just
Oh
pulls it
God.
across.
If my wife and I worked at home and shared a room together, one of us would not come out alive. There's
Well, I
no
think we had the experience of we we'd moved in together like during lockdown and during COVID and everything. And we were both at the time in different jobs and we were trying to be freelance and try to figure things out. And I mean, I think a new relationship getting thrown into lockdown is really a true test there. So we got really used to it and we're now just in the habit of we share the same space, but you do have to be strict with, okay, this is the start of the working day and this is the end of the working day.
Oh, if I worked from home, I'd be fired. You
Do you think so?
Oh my God. I'd just be like looking at the couch, taking a nap, you know, watching TV. I'd just be too distracted. I would, you know, unfortunately or unfortunately, you can't do construction from your house. So you have to
Yeah.
go to where the things are being built. So I have no option of working at home. But
But that must be quite nice in terms of you can be out and you're doing something so physical, and then when you come back, it must be like quite rejuvenating for something creative as well.
I talk bad about it, but that's just, you know, what you do. You always talk bad about it. But I do like it. I like like, I go to different places. You know, this job's over. So there comes a point where you just like, I hate sitting on this subway. I hate this stop. I hate that deli. And then you go to a different place. And then it's like, oh, wow, I get to find out all new Like right now I'm in a Dominican neighborhood. So there's a Dominican diner over here. There's a different restaurant. So I go out for lunch and try all the different places. Before that, I was at the airport for 4 years, and there's no place to go. You can't leave because you know you got to get ushered in because you're crossing the tarmac. You know you can't the airplane. So you go in, you have to get cleared by the FBI, and then you go and you work there, and you're stuck. for 8 hours. So there was, you bring a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for lunch. So now I'm like, there's a restaurant there. I probably gained 20 pounds. Why am I talking about this? You made a book and I'm talking about eating too much at work.
Well, I want to know the secrets of the airport. I want to know what happens.
My pass just expired, but I would, I used to joke around that because I had I was in charge of like trucks coming in and out, so I had a pass that I could go anywhere in the airport. Like I could walk up into other planes if I wanted to, but of course my boss was gonna be like, "What are you doing?" But so I could go into all the secret places. Now, and I think your dad even commented, I'm working underground Manhattan, so like I'm sure Glasgow has it too. I'm sure every major city has this, but most cities have an underground that extends as deep as the buildings are tall. In New York City in the 30s, they passed a law that all power lines had to be underground. So they dug tunnels, they dug for the subways, and that all needs electricity. And then they have there's a reservoir coming from upstate New York from the mountains, and they just have this huge, it's like a supervillain drill that just drills, and it's been going for like 20 years, and it goes underneath Manhattan, and that brings the water, and then they go back to expand it. But they need oxygen down there, they need air, and that, I'm an electrician, so like I was saying, anywhere there's electricity, I go.
Yeah.
And I'll, me and my foreman went down there like 25 stories, it's under the earth, and he just pulls out his pistol and starts shooting. Boom, boom, boom. I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, there's nobody down here but us. So,
oh my God.
so me and him, we just, he goes, there's no police, there's no laws, there's nothing down here, me and you. I was like, all right.
That seems like the perfect setup for having like your own new civilization, an underground city.
It's funny because people say that, like, what if we went upstairs and there was a zombie apocalypse? We wouldn't know about. Like, it is a perfect setup for like two construction workers down in, oh, the power went out, so we're down there for 18 hours straight. We come up and it's a nuclear apocalypse, and it's just like, now what?
Yeah, you're the people that are surviving when it happens.
But somebody said this in a comment, and I'm sorry about making this all about me. I talk about anything, but somebody said this in a comment that are there mole people? Now I can't find it. But there's not mole people, but there are homeless people that live in the tunnels, and we have to we bribe them not to pee all over our equipment. So it's like we make a joke about it. We're like, hey, it's $20. Here's $20. Here's $20. You guys are on the job. Make sure nobody messes with our equipment. And it's just a bribe, because when you don't do that, you come back and there's poop and pee all over. And I don't want to open that bar. I ain't touching that. You open that bar. I ain't touching that.
Well, you must just learn like all of the tricks of the trades with things like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of hidden costs to working in the city. I'm sure Glasgow has it too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm gonna now be trying to find these secret tunnels underground.
Once you know what to look for, it's pretty obvious. Like, you ever just walk by a building and it's got no windows and it's got like a steel door and it's never opened? That's you open that up. That's like there's definitely a machine in there that pumps the air that goes down. Did you see Men in Black? If you remember the first Men in Black movie, the security guard's just sitting in a chair and there's a big fan.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the tunnels. That literally is a fan that pumps air underneath the World Trade Center specifically. I've been down there. You go into that room, it's that room, but it looks cool in the movie. But that's what it's for. Just they would all die because the carbon dioxide would just collect down there, and it would be. We actually have like little sniffers in our pocket that'll instead of a canary, we call it a canary, but it's like a little sniffer, and it'll change lights if the oxygen gets bad and things like that.
God,
but that is not for Jack.
When I go missing in one of these underground tunnels in Glasgow, they'll know who to blame. I've went on a hunt.
Yeah, you went on a hunt. It's funny because I'm into conspiracy theories, and one of my buddies was telling me about Tartaria, and I never heard about what he's. Now I've been looking, but one of the proofs is that there's underground cities and all the underground tunnels and all the cities. That's proof that there was a mud flood but you know, but I just so that's one of the jokes. Whenever I'm underground, I'm like, we're in Tartaria exploring.
Well, that's like we last year, me and my partner we were living in Georgia for a few months for his work.
Georgia,
And
Georgia in America.
yeah, Georgia in America, and then he stayed on to work in LA for a bit, and I came back home for work. And there was the conspiracies at the time about like the secret underground Starbucks in LA and all these communities that are underground. And Chris was like, if I could get into those tunnels just to avoid traffic, I would.
They're absolutely 100% real. I don't know if there's a Starbucks, but there's underground railroad systems that the government uses. Like there's by City Hall in New York, there's an abandoned subway station, and you can see it from the F train if you could look, and it's beautiful. It's old, like what is it, Art Deco? So it's just beautiful, and they built it for FDR, the President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, because he had polio when he was crippled. So they built the subways for him to use, and it had I think it was from Penn Station to Grand Central Station, this train that went there so nobody would see, and then he would go up to give a speech because they didn't want anybody to know he was crippled. So they would prop him up on stilts. He would give a speech, wave to everybody, and then, when nobody was there, put him in his wheelchair and take him out so nobody would see. It's still there.
Gosh, so extra just for the sake of someone seeing you.
Yeah,
maybe take a tumble.
Next time I go, I got to take pictures. But you can look it up. There's a website dedicated to like Lost New York. It's really cool. You can see all the because they built the Second Avenue line, but then abandoned it, and they literally filled it with rocks.
Right. Okay.
But there's tracks. I was up in the Bronx. There's a abandoned old rail systems like that because they switched over to so me and my friends are just drunk walking through the park, and I didn't know, but he was leading, and all of a sudden there's just like a big train, like an old 18, just covered with weeds and everything like that, and of course it's got graffiti all over it and everything, but I'm like, oh, because he knew I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it feels very like James Bond-esque. You get a lot of that in England where it'll be kind of like disused trains and subway stations, and then you'll see it in the James Bond movies where they're like, meet me in this secret tunnel.
Oh yeah. I mean, Glasgow is what, 3-4 times older than New York City? You gotta have secret. One of the here I am talking about, I was gonna talk about London, but you know better than me. But one of the things I'm also fascinated about is lost rivers. There's rivers of London that just got paved over, but they leave the rivers underneath because they'll be flooded, and then it's going to drive me nuts. But there's a river that goes through London, but it hasn't been exposed to sunlight in like 400 years, and you could go to how they have like 300-year-old pubs. You could go and they'll have like a door in the basement. You could go up and go down, and that's the only way to see the river. So of course, me being a comic book guy, that's where the swamp creatures and the old goblins live, and these pub owners or the generationally, they know that these creatures are down there.
Yeah, oh no, definitely. And I mean, I'm a big fan of like a creature feature, and I think the UK just has so much history to it. Like, even as I say, when we were in Georgia last year, we were like, it's crazy how new this is. We're used to everything being so old, and even like the apartment we live in is just kind of the same as the apartments that are in this area. Like everywhere in Scotland's quite similar, and these are hundreds of years old, and it's not like a historical thing that people come to see. It's just the everyday.
The building you're in right now is probably older than my country.
Probably, yeah.
When you were in Georgia, what time of the year were you in Georgia?
We were there from kind of August onwards for like 2 or 3 months.
How did you live? I live in the United States, and I can't deal with Georgia in August. It is unbearably humid.
Yeah, I stayed inside a lot of the time.
Yeah. Now you know why Americans like their air conditioning, right?
Oh, for sure. And I mean, aircon doesn't really exist here. There's
right here.
There's heating, like you've got your radiators and it's central heating that people have on, but other than that, like aircon is quite a new thing. That's just something that people have started getting. And you say that to people in the States, and they're like, "How do you get by
Oh,
without it?"
yeah. I got the air on already, and it's 73 degrees. I'm like, 70 degrees Fahrenheit. That's Celsius. I guess that would. My wife still says Celsius. I'm like, you gotta talk to me like an American.
Well, I feel like I've learned little things like that from being there last year that, yeah, normally I would be like, it's 20 degrees today. And I'm now like, that probably means like 69 in another language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta ask you now, in Georgia, what did you think of the food?
The food. So this is maybe a bit sacrilege, but I'm a long-term big vegan.
Oh,
So I
and you
was,
went to a place known for barbecue and didn't eat the
yeah.
barbecue. Oh my.
I had my own version of things. I mean, I love corn. There was a lot of corn-based meals that I had. And I mean, it was good food. It was nice. And I mean, my partner works in film, and he's a writer and a filmmaker. And a lot of the time we were on a set, and we were really lucky that the set had, even though it was quite an indie film, it had a really good food truck, and it was local food that was there. And that's quite a rare thing. People don't always get their lunch when they're there. Um, and we got to kind of try out a little bit of everything, but it was good. It was nice.
I went to Atlanta. I'm trying to think, 2 years ago, and it was just barbecue. And they would get mad if you used a fork. Like, no, you got to pick it up. All in my beard. I look like a barbarian. Oh yeah, so good.
Yeah, I just had maybe like stains on most things I owned, and I was like, I just need to accept that now.
Yeah, yeah. Did you get fried okra? That's vegetarian.
Yeah, I had that. I had that quite quickly after coming, and try to think what else I had. There was tons of like corn on the cob stuff, sweet corn stuff. Also, everywhere I went, just like a giant Pepsi, which that might sound really normal, but there we go. We're normally like, I mean, it's such a British thing to be like, oh, a coffee or a cup of tea.
Oh yeah. Could you get that over here? Like how is that? Like here, John's
So
Walmart, sponsored by White Castle, little cheeseburgers. Since you're vegan, I won't eat it in front of you.
you're good, you're good. No, it was quite funny. We were there for maybe the first month, and my partner Chris is really addicted to tea, and he was like, I can't get by without a kettle. Like I need to find a way of having this here. And I was just getting like instant coffee and putting it in the microwave for a couple of minutes.
Oh my god, you're blaspheming! My wife took me to she surprised me for my 50th birthday and flew me to Iceland because I always wanted to see the Northern Lights. So we went there, and I was craving coffee. I was like, I gotta get coffee. I gotta get coffee. So there was a coffee shop right by the hotel. So I walk in there and it's signed coffee. This coffee Americano. So I'm thinking, oh, it's American style coffee. I'm in another country, so so I ordered. That's instant coffee.
Yeah.
I'm like drinking it angry. I'm like, this sucks. Like but I paid for it and I'm drinking. And I found out later that day, like, get regular coffee. This is a regular country. The next day, I was like, oh God, real coffee. But I just remember it was like the angry cup. I'm like walking down the streets. I hate this country. This coffee sucks.
Well, that's the thing from being in Georgia, I got hooked to Dunkin' Donuts. That was the place that we were in every day. And I mean, there was hash browns, there was the avocado bagels, and I would just get a giant iced coffee. And there's all these pictures of me with, I mean, I'm like 5'1". I'm really small, and I'm quite small built. And I would have this like regular size cup of coffee.
American.
It was like, yeah.
Does your partner does he eat meat?
Yeah, he eats anything. He tries anything.
Did you have the barbecue then?
Yeah, he went all
All right,
in.
as long as something
Whatever's
there.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dunkin' Donuts has decent coffee. It's my second favorite. My favorite is Tim Hortons. It's funny that my wife is Canadian and I like Tim Hortons. Yeah, I saw the Northern Lights in New York, and I never saw them in Iceland. It just happened that they were there the day before we went. There was actual pictures. People showed me, oh, this was yesterday. So that night we went out. There was nothing. But I loved Iceland. I would go. Have you ever been there?
Do you know, we had maybe like a year ago, we had a book to go, and then it was at the exact same time that the volcanoes erupted. And I think it was still safe for us to go, like we could get on the flight, but there was quite a lot of people that were arriving and then from the UK and then immediately getting turned back. And at the time we were like, it's a sign that it's not meant to be. So it's on the list.
It's funny because my wife's like, we got to go now. Now there's a volcano erupting. You know, we got to go now. Luniverse says, do you ever have Mexican street corn? Did they have that? It is so good. Yeah, corn on the cob. They spice it. They cover it with mayo. Oh my god! You think corn is boring, but no way. They can. We're talking about food here. I'm.
You can't go wrong with corn.
I'll say anytime you eat American-made food, you have 1% chance of. RFK is going to change that. He's taking all the chemicals out of our food.
It was quite crazy reading the back of like I'm diabetic. I've been diabetic for a really long time, so I have to really carefully watch what I'm eating. And it was a bit of a culture shock reading some of the backs of packets when I was away.
Yeah, when we went to Iceland's the only. I've been all over North America, South America, but I mean down to Mexico, not South America, the continent, but Iceland is as far as I've been. I haven't been to full on Europe yet. And the food was so good. Like the first day we went there, we had to get steaks. Iceland is very, we don't import food. They don't, you know what I mean? Because they want to keep it. They don't want any diseases and stuff like that because it's a fragile ecosystem. Oh my God, it was so good. I just remember just eating butter. That's what a slob I am. I'm like, the butter is so good. And the water right out of the tap. It was water
Scotland. That's Scotland. You can just have water out of the tap. Because we would be abroad, and there's a big kind of water company here, Highland Spring, and we would be buying that while we were away. And we were like, this came from home. It's so strange.
It was spending $6 a bottle for water that comes out of the tap. I got to ask you now, since we're talking Scotland and food, what exactly is haggis?
So I like to tell people that haggis is a mystical animal that runs through our forests.
Like the American jackalope, it doesn't really exist.
Yeah, it's really cute, and I think it's a shame that people eat it. But I mean, haggis. See, to be honest, it's a mix of a lot of different things, but it's a lot of herbs, and people don't always give it that credit. It's got a lot of flavor in it. So if you're going down the traditional route of, say, if you were kind of more up in the Highlands, and it was maybe kind of more from like local communities and everything, traditionally it would have sheep intestine in it, but it's just this kind of like ground up meat with different kind of grains put through it. But you get a lot of kind of vegetarian versions that apparently taste exactly the same, and it's really nice.
Okay, so you've eaten it and you recommend it?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we do a full Burns night, so every year we have haggis, neeps, and tatties, which is kind of like turnip, potatoes, a couple of other things, and some haggis. So we go all out.
I remember my friend Jimmy and I just graduated college. We were broke. We rented a beat up car and we drove through Mexico. I knew a little bit of Spanish. Jimmy knew no Spanish whatsoever. And we would just stop, and we were dumb in our 20s. We're like, we're going to stop at all the dirtiest places and eat there and see how long it takes us to get sick. Apparently, after a day or two, you develop an immune. But I remember we pulled over in this yard, and there was a woman there who just had bricks, just like a brick fire, and she had a sheet metal just thrown on top of this, and she was just cooking. People would come by and give her meat, and we just sat there. We just threw mud like a bar. We were drunk, and eating this food. And I just remember she's like, tripe, and I'm like, yeah, tripe. And then after a while, I'm like, Jimmy's eating it, I'm eating it, we're just eating it, and I'm like, tripe, we're eating intestines right now. And Jimmy goes, I'm so drunk, I don't care what I'm eating. And it was, it was a lot of fun.
I think if you put a certain amount of flavor in anything, you can eat it.
Yep. Here you go. Marcus has been a great moderator, reminded me to talk about Bird Dad. One last Glasgow question, though, I got to ask you. Somebody told me that the Glasgow kiss is a headbutt from a guy. Okay, you're not. It is real. Okay.
Well, there's kind of a thing with I guess Scottish people in general, but particularly Glasgow, that people go, oh, it's really tough and it's really scary. But I think a really good way of summarizing Glasgow is that there was a year or a few years in a row where Glasgow was voted one of the most intimidating and scary places in the UK for knife crime, and it was also voted the friendliest city in the UK. So you've kind of got that whole thing of, oh, there's tough people here and you might get into a fight, but that person's probably going to phone you an ambulance if something
Oh,
happens.
that's nice. He checked my pulse after he stabs me.
Yeah.
New York is, believe it or not, voted one of the friendliest cities in the world. But like, the thing about New York is everybody's got stuff to do. Everybody's in a hurry. But so I guess if you're from like a small town or whatever, it seems unfriendly. But if they're not unfriendly, it's expensive. We got to get to work on time. We got to do that. But like, if you fall down and get hit by a car, New Yorkers will help you. You know,
Yeah, there's that kind of like collective community.
they stab with love. And that's all.
That's like Scotland. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, all the houses and everything. It's all stone there, right? Like, were you shocked to see that in America we build with wood? That's like the biggest thing that Europeans say is like, all your houses are fire traps.
Yeah, yeah, it was quite a big change where, as I say, everything here is really old. It's stone, and I'm kind of in like a tenement flat, which is kind of like Victorian era. And I mean, there was a pipe that got replaced in my building not that long ago that was the original cast iron pipe that's been there since the 1800s. And that was the first time that it had been opened up and looked at. And the rest of them in here have been completely fine. So things were definitely built to last. And I mean, there might come a time where everything collapses at once at the same time.
I couldn't imagine if it's all stone. I mean, you have to be hit with a bomb or like an earthquake that is just world shattering. I got to ask, as an electrician, how do they do electrical work at a place like? Is it all pipes running down on the outside? Like, okay, so it's all exposed piping.
There's some that are kind of down pipes on the outside and down pipes on the inside, and everything's kind of like that apart from near kind of in Glasgow there's like a big river that runs through the middle of it, and during the World Wars that was like a big target for bombing, and a lot of those buildings got destroyed. So you've kind of got like the old buildings that are here, and then the next most recent thing is kind of what got built in like the 50s afterwards. So even then, it's not that new.
Do you live in those buildings? Like, I'm going to show my ignorance here. Like Harry Potter or Monty Python, where you go up into the attic and you could go into your neighbor's house, like through the attics.
Well, you see, before like maybe the last kind of generation or two of people that have lived here, you definitely could do that. I mean, there's probably still a way of sneaking your way around. It's very Harry Potter, and I mean it is based on true facts that are here.
Yeah, I remember the line "The Witch in the Wardrobe." They were up in the attic and they were talking about going into the. Let's not go to Camelot. It's a silly place. Oh man, I could talk about just the architecture and stuff like that all day. Somebody was busting my chops for saying, "Is this a food channel now?" Yeah, we all eat food, right?
We all like food.
Yeah, we all like food. It's my niece is a vegetarian for years, and I think she finally broke down and ate a hot dog, and I think that was all that it took.
Well, I was so I'm 26, but I was always vegetarian, and then for maybe like the last 10 plus years I've been vegan, but I do see it very much as like an individual thing. I'm not someone that I wouldn't say to people like, oh, don't eat that, or
oh, that's yeah, you wouldn't last in my house.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's funny because my wife and I are big Tolkien fans, and every September 22nd we have Hobbit Day, so we try to have a barbecue as close, so that Friday or Saturday, if Hobbit Day is on a Thursday, we'll do it that Friday or whatever. And it's just, we'll anything that the hobbits would eat. So we're not talking about like tacos or anything like that. We'll make briskets and burgers and whatever, it's sausages there. And I invite friends over, and then we get drunk, and then somewhere around 11 o'clock at night, I'll be like, nerds, you're all here for Hobbit Day. Like, they didn't realize. I said, you're all here celebrating the Hobbit. But the first year, my wife was like, what about your vegan friends? I'm like, there's no vegans in the Shire. Yeah. Oh, we got a super chat. I have to address that. Speaking of the Shire, he was in the Tolkien movies. He was an extra in Helm's Deep. Wow, all the best for your career, Emily. Hope you got the right DNA. You've got the right DNA for it. John interviews all the best people. Thank you.
Oh, that's so nice.
Next time John does a Hobbit Day, I'm going to get all my dwarf homie. We're going to get dwarves are friends with hobbits. Dwarves are welcome. Dwarves are welcome. Just don't dress up like an orc. It's funny that he says that. I lived in Albuquerque for 7 years, New Mexico, and it's beautiful weather there. 320 sunny days a year. So the Renaissance Fair, like when it does the circuit around America, it stops there, and it's like those people live like that 24/7. So me and my friends were always like, let's teach these people what the olden days were really like. We're all going to dress up like Vikings and just show up in a big school bus and just come running out and pick up the women and run off and knock over tables. You like the old days?
Yeah, it's one of those things that I'm like, I wish when we'd been in Georgia we could have went to something like that, because I always associate that with being American. You don't really get that here in the UK, even though people would think that you do.
Oh, really? They don't. I guess it's because Americans we're so young. In a global sense, we're a relatively young country. Scotland is. You're gonna laugh at my ignorance. It's got to be like it's like 1,000, maybe more years old, right?
Oh, I mean, your guess is as good as mine. It's a pretty old place, and I mean, I think of Scotland and Ireland basically being the same thing. All of my family come from Ireland. Most people here come from Ireland. It's sort of one and the same. And yeah, I mean, I just think of Scottish people still being like Vikings.
Yeah, my grandmother was her maiden name was McNally, and up until like maybe 15 years ago, we still. I mean, the gypsies lived in it, but my grandfather had a house that was falling apart, and everybody's like, we should go there and claim it. I'm like, what are we going to do? Like, people living in it for 30 years, you know what I mean? Like, whatever. But she spoke Gaelic, or at least she told me she spoke Gaelic. I couldn't correct it, but I would love to go to Ireland, Yeah, and you pronounce your name Millar, right? Because I've been saying Millar for God knows how long, and your dad, he didn't correct me. He was nice about
it. To be fair, I think we quite often end up saying Millar for the sake of spelling, but it is Miller. And I don't know if at some point decades ago someone just made like a spelling mistake with ER and we ended up with AR, but it's nice because it's a little bit more unusual. And if you come across a Millar instead of a Miller, you're like, oh, we're probably connected in some way.
Oh, cool. So I've been rambling on forever and ever, and I get easily distracted. But so what is Bird Dad? Is this a one shot? Is this something you want to do? Is this like a finite series? Tell us more about what you're working on, and I'll bring up your campaign again.
Thank you. Yeah. So really for me, Kickstarter is the way of self-publishing. So I don't have any of my stories going through a traditional publisher. And as I said, the first campaign went really well. So for me, I just wanted to kind of expand this universe that I've already started. And Kickstarter just felt like the right place to do that. And hopefully we reach our goal. But it's even just great to meet a community of people that are kind of social media adjacent, but not necessarily on social media all day in the same kind of echo chamber. So it's nice just to kind of explore that new community and see who's interested in it and what elements they like. I mean, you need to get feedback on new projects, and I feel like the community on Kickstarter is really good at kind of building you up and saying what they like and they don't like.
Yeah, I have my comic was on Fund My Comic. It's a small new place, mostly just for comics. Obviously, with the name Fund My Comic, I was on Kickstarter, and I found Kickstarter to be real easy to use, and Indiegogo, which I'm never using again. I found that to be just difficult. But Kickstarter was pretty good, and it's got the brand recognition. People know it. But I'm looking at this picture here, and I just can't help but think like did you take that from Hogsmeade, or I just look at the buildings in the background, and I could see Hagrid back there with the.
Well, that's my cave. That's my personal cave. But no, I have that was actually my friend who's an illustrator as well that took it, where I think especially in Scotland, everything looks a bit mystical when you take a photo, but if it's on film, even better.
Yeah, it does. I don't know. As an American, you take a picture out of it's where I live now, it's trees and then regular houses. To me, it's so mundane. It's like strip malls and everything. But I look at Scotland. It just looks like the old world to us Americans. So, how many pages is this?
So it's 72. From
72 pages. Okay.
Yes.
72 pages.
There's stories that are singular pages, there's stories that are double pages, there's some that are kind of 4 or 5, but there's like an overarching narrative that ties everything together as well. So you can pick it up and read a little bit and put it back, but you can also read it from start to finish, and there's been a full story there.
Cool. 20 American dollars for 72 pages is really good, really good. I'm looking at the prices now. Tell me about this worm.
The worm is weirdly a point of contention with people. They either love him or they hate him. So the worm is basically Bird Dad's frenemy. So they're best friends, but they also get into a lot of arguments and don't always like each other. And I kind of, within this universe that I'm starting to create, there's characters that like appear in different ways and like little Easter eggs. And in one of my previous books, Be More Gus, which is about a dog, he has a pet worm, and that happens to be the worm that's in this story as well. So I make little batches of enamel pins, and worm felt like quite a quirky and cute fun one to add in there.
Do you have a thing for worms, or is it just
just all kind of wildlife that could be classed as vermin?
It's because I was in Georgia. I haven't thought about this in 30 years. Wait, and I used to travel back and forth the United States by Greyhound. I don't know if you're aware how big the United States is, but it was a 3-day bus ride from New York to LA. I remember I'm in Atlanta someplace, or outside of Georgia. It doesn't matter, but I'm in Georgia and I'm waiting for the bus. It's like a 2-hour layover, and there's a tree that got knocked over, and the cement is up, and the roots are all exposed. And I'm just sitting there watching this girl. I don't know how old she is. She could have been 13 to 30. She's a big American girl, and she's got like a soda like this, and she just walks over to the hole, lays down on the ground, and she has her face in the hole, and she just starts screaming, "Here, wormy, wormy, wormy. Here, wormy, wormy, wormy." And I'm like, what is going on? I'm looking for cameras. I'm like, are they, what's going on? I'm here by myself. No, I can't, nobody's going to believe. And then she reaches it and she pulls out this worm and she walks over to me. She goes, "Wormy, wormy, wormy," and then walks away. And I'm like, welcome to Georgia, everybody.
And were you like, I need to see these worms?
Yeah, I was like, so I don't know. You just made me, I haven't thought about that for 30 years. Yeah, like Sheldon says, $20 for 20 clams for 72 pages. That's a good deal. Hey, Stu DeGon, how you doing? How do you feel about shaggy dogs? Is that a Scottish thing that I don't know about? Is this a joke I'm not aware of?
I'm not aware of shaggy dogs either.
Yeah, I don't know. Is that something I just don't get? So this is a Bird Dead book. That was difficult for me to say. Pin, prints, and a keychain for about $60. Cool. That's a pretty good deal.
Thank you. I try and work with I have a certain amount that I make myself, and then I have kind of close relationships with printers and companies that are mainly in the UK, if not in Europe, that we speak back and forth about the work and how they print it. And it really matters to me that everyone's paid properly for things like that. It's so easy to make books and to make merchandise for things that there's this disconnect and you don't know the people that make it.
It's so easy these days to make your own. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's difficult, to cost a lot of money, but like there's printers in the United States, like a lot of people I know are getting hit with these tariffs and trade war kind of stuff. You know, is that bothering you at all? Is that you think that's messing with you?
I think right now it's okay in that there are options here. There's certainly people that could be charging a lot more for you to do it locally, and they feel quite strongly that they want to support people in independent art or in their independent businesses. And I mean that could change, and it takes a while to kind of find and establish those relationships. But yeah, I think it's hard to find those people in the first place. So if you find good ones that you trust and you can
Yes.
really work together on things, then that's something to cherish.
You know, my first comic campaign, I spent money on things I shouldn't have spent, you know, with people that I shouldn't have hired, kind of thing. And now it's like I got like the same 6 people that I could trust. Like I could go to this person to print cards. I could go to this person to print my books. You know, it's a lot of. Do you ship everything for yourself? Like, is everything going to get shipped to your apartment and then you pack it up and mail it?
Yes. I have everything here. So I have a very small amount right now, just purely for the photos. So I maybe have like 2 or 3 of things so that I can test it, I
Right.
can give feedback, I can photograph it. But otherwise, if the campaign meets its goal and I make everything kind of printing to order, it all gets shipped here because I'm maybe a bit of a control freak, but I want to see it first. I want to know it's okay.
I totally agree. I got everything. I mean, I wasn't like super successful, but I did pretty good for a guy with no reputation, and people were nice about it. But I got everything shipped here, and I got to say, it was a lot of fun bagging and boarding everything and putting it in the Gemini mailers and printing out little stickers and going down to the post office. The only thing that I messed up on is I didn't realize that there's regular mail and priority mail. So when I went to the post office in the States, they'll give you boxes. So like the guy says to me, why are you going to Home Depot and spending all these money on boxes? He goes, we'll give you boxes. So he gave me a big stack of, you know, you got to assemble them yourself, you know. But then I brought him back to the post office and he's like, these are priority boxes. So I had to go back, take them out. You know what I mean? But that was, but you live it. Now I know what to do. Do you have anything like that? Did you how is the British post office is a lot different than the American post office. Like you don't.
Yeah, we have, I mean, you can choose from like a few different couriers where you can go and do that, where you maybe kind of go to their like drop off location with everything. But I'm a big fan of Royal Mail in the UK, and that's kind of like the one that everyone knows. If there's the red post boxes, that's who it's with. And they do a thing now where as long as it's under a certain size, your local postman can come and take the work away for you. So I tend to buy the envelopes. I put everything in what it should be in, what boxes they should be in, and then I print up the labels. And someone thankfully comes to collect them because last time I had when the campaign had met its goal, there was maybe I think like 70 or 80 different backers, and I have these boxes that are like this size, like the size of my head, and I'd put them in this giant IKEA bag that was huge. And the first half of them I'd kind of dragged to the local post office with me. And after that, I was like, I need to find a smarter way of doing this, not just for myself, but for the product.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Because I made a beer glass, you know, and the boxes were big, and I had like 300 backers. So you can imagine how many boxes I had down here in this basement. And I work, so by the time I get home, the post office closed, so I could only go on Saturdays. So on Saturday, I would show up with like 100 boxes, and they were getting pissed at me. So one of the guys said, you know, you can call and they'll pick it up. So I didn't know that. My wife works at home, so the post office came, opened up the garage door. They took everything. I was like, oh, this is getting easier. But you don't know anything. Everything, you know, is you learn as you play the game. It was, you know, now I feel like I'm an expert. I'm so glad I did everything soup to nuts. You know,
Yeah.
you know, like I'd like to be successful enough that I could hire a service that'll deliver everything and everything. But I'm kind of glad I did it all. You know, every part of the campaign I did myself. It's fun.
Me too, and I think there's even something that I was chatting to like Per Berg Narwhal the other day, and he made a really good point of if you've created something and you've printed it up and then you physically have it after a campaign, if it goes well, there's even just the kind of reward, and you go, oh, okay, one backer, here's their item, and it's in my hands, and I can set it down. Backer number two, it's in my hands, and I can set it down. And I think it can so easily get lost that if you're self-employed or if you're working on a project on your own, you can have like the kind of win of going, yeah, it went really well, but then you forget about these tangible items and getting to appreciate that. And I think if you do every single step of the
I
chain,
totally agree. Like
yeah.
Alex Rhodes, because in the indie comic scene, there's Critical Blast, so I could get everything printed and then from the printer send it to him. His name is RJ. He's great job, and everything's out within a week. But nothing's for free, so I wasn't successful enough to need that. I hope to be successful enough to need that service. And I think he's trying to do something in Europe too, so he could get it shipped to Europe. I think that would be wonderful. But I agree with you. There's something fun, and I use a service called Pirate Ship. So like I type in your address, and you see the line goes whoop, and every time I did that Indiana Jones theme, in the movie when the line goes like that, and I'm glad I did it because sometimes I caught it. I typed in the wrong address, you know what I mean? But I sat there like a little kid. Oh, wrong address. That's not where Minnesota is. That's not where Mississippi is. It was like I was like proud of myself. Not one person said it came damaged. Pint glasses. I think I sent the pint glass. I don't know if I sent one to your dad, but I sent one to Glasgow, and it didn't get destroyed. So I'm pretty proud of myself.
That's great. I mean, I spend like a chunk of my year painting, and shipping paintings is sometimes quite scary. And it's the practice of doing it, of what the materials are and who you trust to take it. And these things can feel like a bit of a gamble or trial and error. As much as you put a lot of research into it, you kind of need to give it a go and see how it goes. And I think even every kind of step of a campaign and having those items in your home and making the parcels for people, you learn more about every single step of the process. That, say, even in future, if you had someone printing it and shipping it directly, or someone else that's a middleman that helps out, you kind of understand and respect their job in a new way that you maybe wouldn't have before.
I'm weird in many ways. One of them is I love the post office. I love everything about the post office. It's just like to the point my wife will be like, I'll mail that. I'm like, no. And she gets mad at me. I'm like, you don't. No, it's not that I don't trust. I get it like a satisfaction because where I live, there's no more mailboxes. It's really weird. When I first moved in here, I was like, because me and my sister talk about our favorite mailboxes. Like, oh, what's your favorite mail? Like, she moved to this town. She's like, John, I found my favorite mail. And we're the only other people that have a favorite mail. But now there's no favorite because there's no mail. So when I was here for like 3 weeks before I finally started talking to my neighbors. I'm like, how do you mail something? They said, oh, you just put it, in your mailbox at the end of your property, and you put the flag up. And oh my God, I love doing it. And my wife thinks that as soon as I put a letter in the mailbox, I'm going to get in the car, drive to work, and then the bandits are going to come and steal my mail. So she waits until she wakes up because then it's only an hour wait before the post office. I'm like, I like it in the mailbox. And then I think about like the gnomes or the fairies taking it and sending it to Minnesota. You know what I mean? I just love that whole process of the mail. And for 44 cents, it's really not that bad. I don't know what the letter is.
I think there's something so kind of like, especially as a British person looking at American cartoons and American kind of like white picket fence setups, that kind of classic mailbox with the little flag seems so intrinsically American.
Oh, you don't have that? You don't
No, we just have like on the street post box setups where it'll literally just be like a red post box with a slot that you buy a stamp and you put it in. We have the occasional gold one. There was years ago, I'm sure it was like a royal celebration of some kind, that a certain amount of post boxes were just golden for no reason.
We got a lot of names. Thanks for everybody for showing up. We got a lot of people watching. Thank you. Anything that I talked and blathered about, so you didn't get a chance to mention? Anything you want to say that because talk about stupid things?
Not at all. I love it. Really, just that I don't have social media, so the only way to see more about my work is via my website, which is under my name. So it's at emilybrooksmiller.com, and I have a newsletter that comes out maybe once or twice a month that gives you every kind of update. And yeah, I love hearing from people. So reach out to me if you have any questions or thoughts on the campaign.
Okay. You want to type that in the private chat so I could put it in the public chat?
Yes, there we go.
And I got to ask, with your father's connections, I think that you didn't want to go to the traditional comic publishing route. You wanted to do crowdfunding.
Yeah, I'm maybe just a bit crazy, but I want to try it that way where my kind of style and what I enjoy maybe just doesn't really fit a traditional publisher. I mean, we were speaking about earlier that from the outside in, it looks quite childlike and colorful and a little bit messy. And sometimes if you have a style like that that then is a little bit more adult or it's subverted, it's not necessarily going to fit a company like that, or they don't want to take a risk on something. And I think it's just a really great way of actually connecting with people as well, as opposed to this kind of faceless thing.
I see that. I was gonna, yeah. I kind of knew the answer, but it's your own project. It's everything. Yeah, you control everything. Yeah, Kickstarter is a format, or a platform rather. But you're a one person business now, like even more so than me, because I have to hire artists, I have to hire colorists, I could draw, but nobody's going to pay for what I draw, So that's you control every aspect of this. You're the publisher, you're the art director, you're even the mail lady. You know what I mean? Yeah,
We've just got different hats. Yeah.
no social media. Yeah, we were talking about that before we went live. I was asking like about Twitter and stuff. Is now you're the youngest person who's ever been on my channel.
Yeah.
It was funny because I was just like, I don't know how old this girl is. I hope she's not 12. So I was relieved that you were as old as you are. But you're by far the youngest person who's ever been on my channel. Is this now a thing? Is this your personal choice, or are the youngins not interested in social media anymore?
I think it kind of goes in cycles. It changes. I mean, I've quite a lot of friends that they maybe have TikTok and they have YouTube, and then they don't have anything else. So I think people got maybe a little tired of Instagram and a little bit tired of Twitter, and I think things come and go. I mean, people jump back on and they get back off. But for me, I mean, my social media was years ago. It was personal. It was just kind of like a regular account. And then over time, I thought, oh, it's quite good to use it purely for work. And I then just found myself making content for Instagram that wasn't actually what I was doing day to day. And as someone that's freelance, I was maybe spending like 48 hours on something that's not of use, and it maybe would just kind of be thrown into the ether as well. And it totally makes sense for people if they're in art and they're doing things that are commercial or they're kind of new and they're wanting to meet a new community. But for what I was doing at the time, it just didn't feel of use. So I think I'd started seeing it as, oh yeah, it was for work. It's not really a personal thing. And for work, it just kind of stopped making sense.
I have Instagram, and I can't even remember the last time I actually posted anything on it. Like now I got to go check it. But I had Facebook for years, but it was just like, hey, look, my cousin had a baby. So I enjoyed that because I got cousins. I'm one of 7 kids, and all my brothers, sisters moved all over, and now their kids have kids, and now even their kids are having kids. So it's a good way to see like, oh, look, they fixed their house after the storm. Things like that. But then I found myself just arguing with people about politics, and I was just getting, and then started doing YouTube, and it seems like if you make a comic book, you have to fight with that guy who makes a comic book. His comic sucks, your comic's great, and now you got to make fun of him or something. And I got drawn into that too. But me and my wife just decided one day, like, we're not going to fight with anybody. Just we're gonna, and it's been more pleasant. I don't know.
Yeah.
So basically, what I'm saying is you're smarter than me staying off social media.
But I think it's one of those things, if you're making work or you're making content that has good intentions, it has positive intentions, like, oh, maybe people would be interested in this, or I'm interested in it, so I'm sharing it. That's just a net positive for everyone. And I think as soon as it's maybe a social media platform where it's designed around sharing every thought and every feeling,
Yeah,
that can be great, but
sometimes keep that stuff to yourself too. You know, I don't.
yeah.
I wanted to share this little social media story with you because I sent it to your dad. I don't know if he saw it, but he was on my channel. And then for like 2 or 3 days afterwards, he was messaging me, and he's like, "Ah, John." Well, he didn't say John. He goes, "I went to this movie last night, and I really liked it. This was my favorite part." And I'm like, "Wow, I'm buds with Mark Millar now. This is great." So I like, yeah, I didn't see that movie, but I was thinking about seeing that. Oh, you really should see it. This was going on for 3 days, and I'm like, "All right, well, I'm boys. Me and Mark are buddies." And then he goes, "Sorry, John. I thought I was talking to my brother." He was messaging the wrong person, and I was like, "Oh."
Well, we had our own version of that the other day where me and Per Berg Narwhal had been on the one of the latest Miller Time episodes, and we were chatting away, and I can't even remember what he was referencing, but he was like, "Oh yeah," and I was sharing this bit of artwork the other day with this like close-knit community of artists that I really value their opinions, and I'm sure you guys both got that email, and the two of us were like, "We're not in that. We're not in that group." So I think he has a Nokia phone that he's had for the last kind of 15 years. So I mean props to him. But yeah.
I love Perberg. Yeah, he's been on my channel a few times. I was just on his channel last, and then he and I and this other guy Jason Sandberg, who does a wonderful comic called Jupiter, once a month or so we take like a comic that's not too well known and talk about it. Like we did Mr. X. I love that. I just love talking comics with people. You know, yeah, Per is my homie. Per, I'm rooting for him. Matter of fact, when your dad was on my channel, that's when he announced that he was working with Per. I was like, really? You know, I got a scoop. It was, yeah.
Well, that's the thing. It's just so nice, and I think, especially when I was doing my first campaign and this one, he's been used to crowdfunding and independent publishing and putting his artwork out there, and I think he's been so good at kind of saying, "Hey, maybe try this thing out," or let me know how you find this element or this change. And it's really nice to just kind of have that like honesty and transparency there. There's no weird kind of competitive edge to him. He's just such a nice person.
Yeah. I'm rooting for him. You know, I'm rooting for Jason. I'm rooting for all my friends. You know, I you know, again, not to get negative or into drama, but there's so much fighting, and I just look at it as if that guy does well on crowdfunding, if that guy does well in indie, it helps all of us. You know, like I remember Keanu Reeves did a crowdfunding, and people are like, why is Keanu Reeves doing it? Who the hell is he? He could do it traditionally. He doesn't need to crowdfund. And I'm like, Keanu Reeves doing his book Berserk brought in like 100,000 eyeballs on the idea of crowdfunding to begin with.
Yeah.
Like, you know, at work, I'm a construction worker. I was telling people I'm making a comic book, and I'm like, oh, it's crowdfunding. They didn't know what I'm talking about. They never heard of Kickstarter. They never heard of Indiegogo. They never heard of Fund My Comic. And I got explained to the normies. But now it's like, oh, it's the same thing that Keanu Reeves does. It adds a little bit of legitimacy, you know? It's not this freaky little thing. So, like, I believe a rising tide floats all boats.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's even remembering that, especially if people are interested in art or they're interested in comics or just like the full universe of that most people are rooting for each other. And online, it might not always feel like that, but most people want to find out what's out there and want to know what's going on.
And like guys like me wouldn't like I laid out a pocket for my first comic, but now because of crowdfunding, I can make more. You know what I mean? It really is kind of like like I always wanted to do this, but I couldn't get my foot in the door. So I think in that aspect, crowdfunding is wonderful. You know, I would like to get into comic book stores someday, or you know, but you know, this is the way I could do it now. This, you know, I don't think I would be able to do it traditionally. You know.
Yeah, and I think it's even amazing that these platforms, I mean, I've only used Kickstarter, I've not been on like Indiegogo or anything. But even the fact that you only get charged if you meet your goal, it's not as if putting it up there, you need to pay a ton of money, or it feels like everyone's got there's somewhere everyone can start on something like Kickstarter, and I mean that's just not the same across other types of platforms. It's really nice.
Yeah, I'm like stuttering now. So I have to stop now because at 8:30 I do another show with my buddy RJ from the Fourth Age. So is there anything that you want to say and me blabber mouthing didn't give you a chance to say?
Really just the campaign is Bird Dads, it's on Kickstarter, and everything's on my website with it's just under Emily Brooks Miller under my name. But I really appreciate you having me. Thank you. Because I recognize I'm new here and it's nice to get to talk to new people. So thank you.
I just like talking about comics. I got a request to play your trailer again, so we'll play your trailer and then I'll go into my trailer and then we're gonna be off. So this is goodbye right here. So we're just gonna play trailers until we're off. See you, everybody.
Thank you.
Let's play this. Make it big.
All right, the early bird gets the worm. Everyone gather round.
Dad!
Shut up, it's time I told you a little story. The story of my life. He's a high flyer, oh he's a hoot. The jack of all trades with the rule of the roots. Birds off a feather, play fast and loose. Now he's waiting to give up the goose. It's Bird Dad. He's a high flyer, oh he's a hoot. The jack of all trades with the rule of the roots. Birds off a feather, play fast and loose. Now he's waiting to give up the goose. It's Bird Dad.